Here's a number that might surprise you. In studies on human connection, 87% of people say what they needed most in a hard moment was simply to be heard. Not fixed, not guided, just heard. Yet most of us, almost instinctively, reach for advice. We hand someone a map when they're still learning to walk. The Buddha noticed this pattern long before modern research did, and he pointed to 3 quiet habits that pull us away from real compassion. Today I'll show you all 3, and what to offer instead. It was a quiet night. The Buddha was sitting with his disciples, one of those evenings that seemed to hold its breath. The sky was thick with stars, no wind, only the faint sound of insects drifting in from somewhere far away. The disciples sat in their own stillness. Some had closed their eyes, others gazed up at the sky without really seeing it. Then the Buddha began to speak. His voice was low, unhurried, as if the words themselves were dissolving into the night air rather than cutting through it. No one moved, no one interrupted. They simply listened. What was spoken that night would later be recorded in a collection of ancient teachings, a passage known as the Metta Sutta, the discourse on loving kindness. Tonight, let's step inside those words together. The fire between them had burned down to embers, casting just enough light to see the outline of a face, the fold of a robe. It was the kind of darkness that doesn't frighten, the kind that holds you. And into that darkness, the Buddha offered something that had no edges. The Buddha began like this: those who are skilled in doing good, who wish to attain the state of peace, let them practice in this way. And then he continued, be capable, be honest, be gentle, be warm, and let go of pride. The disciples listened still. May all living beings be free from suffering. May they be at peace. May they be happy. The words kept widening like ripples across still water. The weak and the strong, the tall and the short, the large and the small, those we can see and those we cannot, those near and those far, those just born and those yet to be born. Every living thing, without exception, may all of them be at peace. A young disciple raised his hand quietly. Teacher, why do you say the same for our enemies, for those who have harmed us? How can we truly wish peace for someone who has hurt us? The Buddha looked at the young man. There was no irritation in his eyes, no disappointment. Let me ask you something, he said. A pause. When a mother protects her child, what does she do? She would give her own life, wouldn't she? Does that love only appear when the child is being good? The young disciple thought for a moment. No, I think she protects the child, even when the child is crying, even when the child is misbehaving, even when the child is pushing her away. That is right, the Buddha said. A mother doesn't protect her child in order to change the child. She protects the child simply because she cannot bear to see the child suffer. That is what loving kindness is. Another disciple spoke softly. Then loving kindness isn't about doing something for the other person, teaching them something, fixing what's wrong. The Buddha let the question rest in the air for a moment, as if he were receiving it before responding to it. When you have shared something painful with someone, he said, and they immediately replied with, here's what you should do. How did that feel? The disciple thought, then answered slowly. It felt rushed somehow. I wasn't sure if they had actually heard me. Yes, the Buddha said gently. People often appear to be looking for answers, but what they are truly looking for, many times, is simply to be heard. To have someone know the weight they are carrying. Nothing more than that. The night had grown deeper around them. The Metta Sutta says this: whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, as long as you are awake, hold on to this intention. And that intention is not to change the other person. It is simply to receive the fact that they exist, to let their presence land inside you. The young disciple asked once more, what does it mean to receive someone's presence? The Buddha looked up at the stars for a moment before answering. When you hear someone's pain, you don't try to erase it. You simply know it is there. You hold inside yourself the fact that this person is suffering right now. In this moment, that alone can bring a little relief. Do you know why? The disciple shook his head. When we are in the middle of suffering, we feel utterly alone. We feel that no one could possibly understand. But when someone simply says, I hear you, and means it, that aloneness begins just slightly to melt. That is the power of loving kindness. The silence of the night spread out around those words, holding them. Another disciple who had not spoken until now looked down at his hands. "There is a man in my village," he said quietly, "who wronged my family many years ago. When I see him on the road, I cross to the other side." The Buddha did not answer immediately. A moth moved through the lamplight between them. The words of the Metta Sutta look simple on the surface. May all living beings be at peace. But the deeper you sit with them, the harder they are to hold. They keep slipping just beyond your reach. Let's pause here and ask something honest. When someone we care about is struggling, what do we naturally want to do? Most of us want to fix it. Here's why this is happening. Just try not to let it get to you. If you look at it differently, the words come from a real place, a good place even. We want to help, but what does the other person feel in that moment? This is where something quietly goes wrong. Most of us have had the experience of receiving advice and still walking away feeling worse. And usually, it wasn't because the advice was incorrect. It was because of something else. A feeling that our pain had been treated as a problem to be processed and moved past. That it hadn't been allowed to simply exist. In other words, the hurt doesn't come from being given advice. It comes from the sense that someone said in effect, "Set your pain aside for now. Let's get to the solution." Being handed an answer before your wound has been acknowledged, that creates a second kind of hurt. In Buddhist thought, every form of suffering has a cause. So what is the cause beneath this particular pain? The feeling that no one really listens, that it's hollow to open up. At the root of it is an unmet wish, the wish to be truly understood. That wish is completely natural, but when it goes unanswered, when we share something and feel unseen, we begin to close. Slowly we stop reaching out, we go quiet, and we end up alone again. This cycle begins with a kind of blindness. Neither the person speaking nor the person listening can clearly see what is actually needed. So they talk past each other. The listener gives advice out of care. The speaker walks away not knowing if they were heard. Here is something worth sitting with. When you want someone to really listen to you, what version of yourself is asking for that? Not the strong version, not the put-together version. The version that is simply here, right now, wanting to be known by another person. That self shifts. It's different today than it was yesterday. I am not a fixed thing. I am what arises in this moment, in this situation, in contact with this particular person. The loving kindness the Metta Sutta describes, offering it to all living beings, means receiving the other person as they are right now. Not who they were yesterday, not who you think they should be. The person standing in front of you in this moment. And in that space, advice may not be what's needed at all. What may be needed is something quieter. The certainty that says, "I know you are here. I know you are going through something." For 2,500 years, the Metta Sutta has been carrying that message. Whether standing or sitting or lying down, as long as you are awake, hold this intention. I don't think that means think about others every minute of the day. I think it means don't erase them. Don't rush to make their suffering disappear by solving it. Simply continue to know that they are there. That is where compassion begins, not in the moment you say the right thing, not when you finally find the words that help, but earlier, in the moment you stop trying to make the pain go away and simply stay. A teacher once described it this way: a candle doesn't ask the darkness to hurry up and leave, it just keeps burning. That is enough. So how does this show up in the ordinary moments of our lives? Let's think about something that might feel familiar. Imagine a colleague, someone who has been doing the same work for years. One day they come to you and say, "I don't think I can keep going like this." Your first instinct might be to say, "I think the problem is," or "Have you tried?" That impulse comes from a genuine place. You want them to feel better, you want to help. But what were they actually asking for in that moment? In most cases, not an answer. Beneath the words, "I don't think I can keep going," there was likely something like, "I am exhausted and I need someone to know that." That was the real message. When advice arrives instead, something quiet happens inside them. A feeling like, "My exhaustion just got skipped over." And sometimes the more accurate the advice is, the lonelier that feeling becomes. Now think about the people closest to us, a partner, a family member. In long relationships, we often develop reflexes. Someone brings up a worry, and before they've finished, something in us has already said, "We've been through this before," or "The solution is obvious." The words come out before we've really arrived. If that sounds familiar, it might be worth looking at what's underneath the reflex. Sometimes it's a genuine wish to help quickly. Sometimes it's a tiredness that's crept in without us noticing. Sometimes, and this is the harder one, it's a frustration with ourselves for not being able to fix what hurts the person we love. The Metta Sutta speaks into exactly this. May all living beings be free from suffering. May they be at peace. That wish is not a wish to change the person. It begins with simply receiving the fact that they are suffering right now. Receiving it, not fixing it. What comes after that, whether anything changes, whether anything resolves, comes later, and often none of us can know how it will unfold. One more scene. A child comes home and says, "School is really hard right now." A parent's mind moves fast. Why? Is someone being unkind to you? Should I speak to the teacher? Every instinct is to protect, to act, but what the child may need first is simply to feel, "My mom heard me, my dad knows." This isn't about being passive. It isn't about doing nothing. It is about the order of things. People can only begin to think about what to do next after their pain has been allowed to exist, after it has been witnessed. Hand someone a solution before their wound has been seen, and they often can't take even one step forward. Their feet won't move. Somewhere along the way, many of us absorbed the idea that listening is the absence of action, that sitting quietly while someone speaks means you're not doing anything useful. So we speak, but it may be the other way around. To truly listen is to receive, to let the other person's reality arrive inside you, fully, without immediately reorganizing it into something solvable. That is not nothing. In some ways, it may be the most important thing we ever do for another person. The Metta Sutta is a teaching about action, but it is equally a teaching about how to be. Standing or walking, sitting or lying down, it doesn't say loving kindness only counts when you're doing something remarkable. It says that simply being present, simply remaining aware of another person's existence, that too is how compassion moves through the world. So what might we actually try, starting today? Just one thing. The next time someone begins to tell you something, tonight or tomorrow, try staying quiet for the first 30 seconds. No response. No advice. Not yet. For some of us, silence feels dangerous. An urgency rises. I need to say something. See if you can just notice that urgency. I'm about to speak. Why? What's pulling me toward words right now? What the Buddha described in the Metta Sutta wasn't a complicated practice. When he said hold this intention, the intention he meant was simply this: to remain aware that the person in front of you is alive, and that they are carrying something right now. The disciples practiced holding that awareness while walking, while eating, while sitting in stillness, not performing kindness, just staying awake to the fact of another person's inner life, noticing rather than solving. In practical terms, it might look like this. When someone is speaking, gently release the part of your mind that's already composing a reply. Instead, try to take in the whole of what they're offering. Not just the words, but the tone of voice, the pace, the silences between sentences. Receive all of it. You won't always get it right. That's okay. I won't promise that doing this will change everything. I won't promise the person you listen to will feel immediately lighter, but something in the way you see things may gradually shift. A small recognition may grow more frequent. This person doesn't need an answer right now. They need to know I'm here. That is the quiet, modest practice the Metta Sutta has been pointing toward for 2,500 years. And when that recognition finally comes, not as a thought, but as something you feel in your chest, you may find yourself sitting with a friend in the way a good doctor once described to me, not trying to fix the weather, but standing in the rain with someone until it passes. That is enough. That, the Buddha seemed to suggest, is everything. One question to sit with today. When was the last time you listened to someone, really listened, without saying a single word until they were completely finished? How did they seem afterward? How did you feel? There's no need to answer quickly. Just let the memory come back to you, gently, if it will. A monk in a small village once sat with a grieving widow for 3 full hours, saying nothing at all, and when he finally rose to leave, she took his hand and said, "That was the most helpful conversation I've ever had." He had not spoken a single word. She had answered all of her own questions, simply because someone was willing to hold the silence with her. We explored the quiet art of truly listening, the very foundation of offering empathy over advice, in a previous teaching on Buddhist relationships. The words of the Metta Sutta are short, and they are deep. May all living beings be free from suffering. May they be at peace. Saying those words is not an attempt to change anyone. It is a way of receiving the simple fact that someone is alive, that right here, right now, this person exists. When people feel genuinely heard, something often begins to move inside them. What moves and where it goes, that's impossible to predict. But something that was frozen will sometimes, just slightly, begin to thaw. And it may not be because you did anything remarkable. It may simply be because you stayed, because you listened. The Metta Sutta was spoken by the Buddha on a night just like any other, under a sky full of stars, to a small group of people sitting quietly around him. And the warmth of those words has been traveling through time ever since, arriving here, in this moment, with you. Someone near you may be wanting to say something tonight. You don't have to have the right answer ready. You just have to be there. A monk once said that simply sitting beside someone in silence is itself a kind of speech. Not the silence of having nothing to offer, but the silence of having nowhere else to be. May today's words quietly take root within you. One story a day. In a week, your words will change. In a month, your eyes will change. In a year, the same world will look completely different.